Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's time for the Jolting Joe Sports Show here, recording on Friday, February the 4th of 2021. Here in Houston, it's about 34 degrees outside. Way too cold to be smoking. But what are you drinking? What are you smoking? Uh, Out of the Rocky Patel 2003 Cameroon wrapper. That's one of my favorites right there. Love that one. And then from our local craft brewery here in Houston, little St. Arnold's French Press. It is an Imperial Coffee Porter. Actually pretty damn tasty too. St. Arnold, also the oldest craft brewery in Texas, started back in 1992 here in Texas. So let's, there you go. Cheers, everybody. All right, today, as you can see, I'm wearing the old logo. So let's talk about that first. My team, is now the Washington Commanders. I will buy new gear. I just was not going to buy new gear while they were just the football team. Okay. I mean, I did buy a hat. Okay. And a shirt, but the shirt just kind of said Washington, and it was one of those loud ones. It was fantastic. But I didn't wear, jackets, t-shirts, things like that, and other hats and stuff. Still got my Redskin leather jacket, Redskin t-shirts. So, but now that the Commanders, I will give them more money and buy new stuff. As far as the name goes, it's just it's a name. You know what I mean? It's kind of like all the animal names out there in the NFL. I mean, you got the Cardinals, you got the Falcons, you got the Eagles, you got the Rams. I mean, eh. You know what I mean? Titans. All right. Could be worse. Could be the Texans. All right. And I'm from Houston, and when they released that name, I was like, that is the dumbest thing. And really, I was more upset about it because I was like, you're ripping off the old AFL team, the old Dallas Texans that then became the Kansas City Chiefs. And I was like, why are you going to rip off the Dallas Texans? That's just stupid. And then plus, it's just a lazy name anyway, because it's like, ooh, Texans. We're all Texans. Well, no, yeah. But there's nothing tying it into the city or anything of Houston. Like, keep the space theme or the oil theme or do something, man. But anyway, um, also though with my team, got more sexual harassment allegations against Daniel Snyder and team misconduct aside. I think Washington Commander uh, football fans are ready to get a new owner. All right, I know Cowboy fans. They've had it up to here with Jerry Jones for years. I think Washington fans are in the same boat. We're ready to get rid of Dan Snyder, and maybe all of this sexual misconduct and everything that's been going on and everything. Maybe we'll finally get him the boot, but we'll see. We'll talk about of course, the Broncos. They're going to get sold, and then possibly the Dolphins, but we'll talk about that in a minute. As far as that goes, so yeah, with the name change, it's just okay. So, all right. So, let me kind of mark that off the old list here. Got that, and then just gonna go down and run down, made some lights here. All right, and then of course, like I said, Dan Snyder and stuff. We'll see, but yeah, hopefully, maybe finally enough bad stuff will happen if they'll freaking make him sell the team. But anyway, until that happens, it's just, yeah. And then the whole rollout of the name went off all crazy. Yeah, it's just that organization is just poorly run. Not as bad as the Texans, uh, but it's pretty bad. All right, just a couple of quick things here, and then we'll get into the kind of heavy topic here. First of all, just a quick replay. Try that again. Just a quick playoff recap of championship weekend. Uh, Bengals shocked the hell out of me. Coming back 18 down at halftime, come back and win that game. And just real quick, I think the turning point of that game was that uh, drive at the end of the half, where the Kansas City got 0 points. I mean, they drove down, they were in field goal range, they got the PI in the end zone, ball goes to the 1 yard line. There was a few seconds left on the clock, but I mean, hell, Kansas City the week before drove, freaking 60 yards or whatever it was or more in 13 seconds. So you figure, okay, you're down at the 1 yard line, you got 10 seconds on the clock or whatever, you should have at least 3 plays, to throw the ball to the end zone. The first play they ran was an incomplete pass, and that took a lot of time off the clock though. There was only 5 seconds left on the clock after that point. I know I've heard that Andy Reid wanted to kick the field goal. Pat Mahomes wanted to go for it. I got no problem going for it, but you got to know that situation. You got to know that as soon as that ball snapped, you got to step back, 3-step drop, boom, and and look to the end zone. All right, because it's either going to be caught or whatever. You can't just dilly dally around back there. And for some reason, Pat Mahomes just had a brain fart, and he forgot how much time was on the clock, and was sitting back there and sitting back there and sitting back there. And then not only that, when he throws the ball, he doesn't throw the ball to the end zone. He throws it out in the flat to Tyreek Hill, who gets tackled at the freaking 2 yard line. And then for some reason, and then Pat Mahomes tried to call a timeout when they had no timeouts, and also the clock was at 0. So I don't know what happened with Pat Mahomes. I know some people think maybe he was concussed. I don't know. I don't know what happened with that, but he just totally brain farted, forgot the situation, forgot where he was at, forgot everything. And that took at least 3 points off the board. And I think that turned the whole game around. And then Cincinnati just came back, and then Kansas City just played like crap in the second half. That's pretty much the story of that one. Rams came back in the second game. San Francisco's defense kept him in it, and then just, their quarterback's Jimmy Garoppolo. You know, last pick he threw wasn't bad. I mean, he was just trying to run the ball. He was down. They were down by 3, trying to get something going. But you got to score points at some point, and they just weren't able to do it. So, Bengals Rams Super Bowl. The spread's gone up a little bit. Opened up, I think, at 3.5 for the Rams. Went up to 4. Now it's up to 4.5. At least where I'm looking. Although the over under has come down, which is intriguing. But we'll talk about that next week when we get closer to the Super Bowl. So that was going on with that. Mm. Also, we got all right. So play. Okay. Just checking stuff off. Real quick, too, MLB lockout. Looks like spring training is going to be delayed at the very least. Both sides still far apart. MLB, I mean, the owners want mediation. It seems that apparently the Players Association has nixed that idea. I think they've only talked 4 times. Both sides are dug in and they're not compromising, and so looks like spring training at the very least is going to be delayed. And then after that, I mean, if you want a full season and you want to have a little bit, because I mean, after the 2020 season, when there was no spring training, when they just came back, we saw injuries were up, play was not good. All right, the hitters were taking a long time to do something. Because they didn't, they were basically in spring training those first, half of the season because they got 30 games, and then by 30 games in, then they were like, oh, and then they got better. So they're going to have at least a couple of weeks of spring training. You probably want to get at least 3 weeks in, maybe, at least 2 at the very minimum, but probably 3. So they probably need to get a deal done here. I'm looking at the calendar in front of me. I mean, probably they need to get a deal because the season starts out last week of March. I mean, they need to get into spring training, I'd say, by like March 14th, and if not before that. And so maybe they get a deal done sometime this month. I just don't know. It's not looking good. And if they don't get a deal done and games get delayed, baseball's going to have bigger prices. Look, I love baseball. I'm a baseball fan. I think it's a fantastic sport. I would like the pace of play to pick up a smidge because, even, back in, when I was going to games in the 90s and stuff, of course, the Astros were in the National League then, but, 2.5 hour, 3 hour games, that was kind of the minimum. But now you're getting into the 3.5, 4 hour games. And, even baseball fans don't want to sit through that. I don't want to go to the ballpark for 4 freaking hours for a 9 inning game. Right? If I'm there for 4 hours, I mean, I better have gotten 12, 13 freaking innings. You know what I'm saying? And so, so I mean, and baseball's got issues. All right, you can talk. They need robo umps. Instant replay needs to be expanded. And you can get there's need to be a pitch clock. Blah blah blah. I mean, you can get into all kinds of stuff. All right, with baseball and the issues that baseball has. But at the same time, if this if they get postponed and the season gets shortened, or or the more games that they lose, they're going to lose a lot more fans. I mean, I think it's going to be worse than the strike back in '94, because it took a while for fans to come back. I mean, it took McGuire and Sosa for fans to come back in '98. After the strike, ended the season in '94, bled into the '95 season. So it took a little while for the fans to come back. But now with so much other stuff, I mean, NFL's king now. You've got people can watch Premier League if they're into soccer, for crying out loud. Uh, the NBA's there. You got motorsports with NASCAR and everything's there. There's a lot more options with sports and viewing habits and things like that. And this could really damage the sport if they don't get their shit together and figure something out here pretty quick. It's going to be pretty damn bad. All right. So just real quick there on the MLB lockout. And then also too, just real quick, don't know how many Olympic fans are out there, but the Olympics are actually already underway. The opening ceremonies was like, well, here I'm on Central Time. It was about 5 a.m. this morning. They had the opening ceremonies, but the skiing has already started. Women's hockey already started, and curling, mixed doubles curling. God bless curling. I love curling. Started as well. So I've been watching a lot of curling already. But I'm looking forward to the team curling and the U.S. men defending their Olympic gold medal and all that fun stuff. So I mean, so hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about the Olympics, coming up here, but with everything, but. That's a kind of a whole nother topic too, with all the political stuff going on in China and everything, and then COVID on top of it, and all that fun stuff, and the fact that it's in Beijing again, and there's no mountains or snow in Beijing, but hey, we're gonna have the Winter Olympics there. Yeah, okay, as the host city, but most of it's north and northern China and stuff. But anyway, so that's kind of what's going on with that. But yeah, Olympics fully underway now, and looking forward to watching some fun winter sports like bobsled and luge and skeleton, and and then maybe some of the short track speed skating. That's always fun. And it has like roller derby on ice. It's fantastic. And of course, curling. Got to watch the curling, man. Good stuff. All right. So, how's my phone going off? Let me turn that. Let me put that on like at least vibrate there. But I did want to pick because I need to get something up here because I was gonna let me get this up here because this was some. Okay, I'm gonna leave that up. All right. And so we'll talk more about Olympics and we'll talk more about Super Bowl next week. The big thing that we'll spend the rest of the time here, next 15 so minutes on in this little episode here, is Brian Flores. Of course, has sued the NFL. He's also sued the Giants, the Broncos, and also the Dolphins for unfair hiring practices. Now, the interesting thing with let's go through these kind of one at a time here. The allegations against the Dolphins goes beyond hiring practices. This gets into possibly fixing games, basically what's tantamount to point shaving, because according to Brian Flores, he says that the owner of the Miami Dolphins actually offered to pay him $100,000 for every Miami loss, so they could improve their draft position. Now, look, NFL teams tank. All right, the Houston Texans kind of did it this year, but the Texans kind of tanked the right way. What do? You bring in a bunch of players that are either past their prime or that are borderline NFL players. You put them on a 1 year deal, and you let them play as hard as they can and play for a new contract or play whatever the reason they're playing for. But you bring all these guys in. And if you don't win a lot of games, then you don't win a lot of games. Texans end up winning 4 games, So you saw kind of with Jacksonville towards the end too. The Jacksonville was playing hard, they just couldn't freaking win. Detroit was playing hard, they just couldn't freaking win. But they actually say that I will give you money to do it, and I gotta say that on that deal, I would not put it past anybody in the NFL, any NFL owner or general manager, to tell their coach that. I actually wouldn't. So that I can believe. All right, I can actually believe that Brian Flores, was offered money to actually make his team tank. I can totally buy that. I have no problem with that. The Broncos one seems a little interesting because he's basically said that John Elway was hungover for the interview, and even if you were hungover for the interview, I mean, if you were out partying with the team, with the guys before and then during the interview or something, like, that one I don't know about. I mean, I can see John Elway, coming in hungover, but uh, as far as the seriousness of the allegations on that, I don't know. And then the one with the Giants, once again, I can totally see this too. So I'm going to say that at least 2 out of 3 of these have got some credibility to them, like a lot of cred. All right, like over 90% credibility here because it's something that I can totally believe. Like I said, like John Elway coming in hunger, and it's like a 50-50 thing. Like it's like, I mean, I can kind of see it, but at the same time, he's a professional. Would he really do that? I don't know. You know what I mean? But I can definitely see an owner saying, "Here's 100K. Let's lose games. Let's lose games and let's get better draft picks." I can totally see that happening. And then the other thing too is with the Giants, where with the Rooney Rule, which we're going to talk about here in a second, is basically Brian Flores was the token black guy to come in and interview for the Giants when they already knew they were going to hire Daboll from the Bills. They already knew who they wanted, and they just needed to fulfill the Rooney Rule and interview a minority candidate. And they brought Flores in for that. And basically, it was like a 30-minute meeting. And it was like, well, we already got our guy. You're just here to be our token black guy. I can totally see that. And I know has happened. Okay. I mean, I know that has happened. And I think that's the biggest thing probably with this lawsuit is that because the Rooney Rule has not worked the way it is intended to work. And I could totally see teams doing that. Um, right now, Mike Tomlin is the only black head coach in the NFL out of 32 freaking teams. And to be quite frankly, that's just unacceptable. And this was Adam Schefter's tweet today because these are the teams that have already hired coaches. All right, the Bears hired, of course, Matt Eberflus from Indianapolis, white guy. The Broncos hired Nathaniel Hackett, white guy. Giants hired Brian Daboll, white guy. The Raiders hired Josh McDaniels, white guy. The Vikings hired Kevin O'Connell, white guy. And the Jags hired Doug Peterson, white guy. All right. And so of the positions that were open, which I believe there were 8, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There was 9. All right. Bears, Broncos, Giants, Raiders, Vikings, Jaguars, Dolphins, Saints, Texans. All right. So 6 of them have already hired their coaches. All 6 so far have been white. You got the Dolphins, the Saints, the Texans that are left. All right. There's only 3 teams. So we'll see who those teams hire as their head coach. But it really is just a travesty that there aren't more black head coaches in the NFL. All right, and the NFL's kind of been behind on the times on this. I mean, the first black head coach was Art Shell from the Raiders, who was hired in 1989. All right, but before that, you had black managers in baseball. You had black head coaches in the NBA, and it took till 1989 for the NFL to hire a black head coach. And the whole thing with the Rooney Rule, was put in by Art Rooney, the owner, former owner, before he passed away of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who of course hired Mike Tomlin. Now the thing about the Steelers is they're the picture dictionary definition of stability. In the last freaking, it has to be 40, like over 40 years, they've had 3 head coaches. Because Chuck Noll was there all through the 70s and 80s, and then you had Bill Cowher come in, and he was there for damn near 20 years. Then Mike Tomlin's been there for freaking ever. But of course, but the Steelers, like I said, they're the picture of stability. But the Rooney Rule, it does need to be changed because, like I said, I mean, I can totally believe Brian Flores on that he was the token black guy with the Giants, and they already had their point. I don't remember. I need to should have tried to look this up, but I know it was a few years ago. There was a team who had their sights set on somebody, and that was their guy. And it wasn't a minority; it was a white guy, but they had their sights set on him. That was their guy. They went out and got him. Everybody knew that they wanted that guy, so people weren't even interviewing for the job because they knew the team wanted that individual, and they ended up hiring him. Uh, and so they basically just paid a fine for the Rooney Rule because they couldn't get anybody to interview, which is understandable because why are you going to interview for a job that you know you're not going to get? And I think that's kind of the big thing with the Rooney Rule and kind of the problems that it has. All right, so um, you have to hire a minority candidate, but I mean you have to interview a minority candidate, but that's it. All you have to do is interview them, okay, and give them consideration. So there's a they're trying to gather my thoughts here on this because there's a couple instances because the rule, like I said, it needs to be fixed. But I think what it needs to be is it needs to be maybe implemented at the lower levels because the problem with the NFL, right? You got to work your way up, right? So you got to start off as like a position coach, and then from position coach you move up to coordinator, and then from coordinator you get hired on to be a head coach. All right, unless you're the freaking Houston Texans and you want to hire Mc, Mc Josh McCown, who has zero head coaching experience period in the NFL, which that's going to be a huge slap in the face to not only Brian Flores, but it's going to be a huge slap in the face to the entire league if that ends up happening. But the Houston Texans have been hijacked by freaking Jack Easterby over there, and we'll see if Caserio can get a handle on this because O'Connell was one of the candidates for the Texans job. O'Connell took the Vikings job, and so now they have interviewed Flores, but are they going to hire Flores? And then their other candidate is Josh freaking McCown. And if they hire McCown, that's going to be, like I said, that'll be a slap in the face to all NFL coaches everywhere because McCown hasn't had to pay his dues. And also it'll be a slap in the face to Flores because once again McCown's a white guy and he has zero experience. So it's going to make the NFL and the Houston Texans look really, really bad when it comes to this. The timing with Flores is, lawsuit's kind of interesting, but I mean, if you believe Flores, he said that this is more important than his coaching career, and he said it was just, time to do this. Why would you not wait to see if you got a job first and then did it? But we'll see how it goes. So, it's just kind of one of those things as far as that goes. Um, but like I said, sorry, I went off on a tangent there. But like I said, maybe it needs to be implemented there where you need to hire more position coaches, and then the more position coaches you have, then the bigger the pool will be to hire minority, DCs and OCs. And then from there, if you have more DCs and you have more OCs, then you'll have a bigger pool to pick from for head coaching candidates. And then you'll have more black head coaches, more minority head coaches in the NFL. So that might be one way to do it. Because I think there's two ways where I think it'd be kind of hard, maybe to punish a team. Because if you look at for example, if you look at the Jaguars situation, now the Jaguars interviewed Byron Leftwich, all right, so they fulfilled their Rooney Rule, but uh, and I fully expected Byron Leftwich to be the new head coach of the Jaguars. He played for Jacksonville. Byron Leftwich deserves to be a head coach in the NFL, and I figured that would be their number one guy. But the reason that Leftwich turned it down is because he doesn't like the GM, and he doesn't think that he's going to work well with the GM. And and it doesn't matter if they're black or white or brown or any other color, but if coaching candidates, and apparently Dan Quinn interviewed for the Jaguars job, didn't want to work for the guy either. All right. So, if you've got candidates coming in that don't want to work for the general manager and they turn the job down, and then I can understand you just hire whoever you can at that point. Right. Doug Peterson obviously doesn't have a problem with the GM. He takes the job. He's the Jaguars head coach. So you can't fault the Jaguars for that. That was a personal choice made by Leftwich, and then also a personal choice made by Daniel Quinn, who of course is white. But in that regard, you've got coaches that are saying, I don't like this GM. I don't want to work with this GM. I'm not taking this job. All right. So you can't fault the Jaguars because I think they did want Byron Leftwich, but Leftwich didn't want the GM, and so Khan said, "Well, GM's my guy, and he's not going to fire. The owner's not going to fire the GM, so Leftwich doesn't take the job." And also too, as I mentioned as an example, like I said, I can't remember who it was, but let's just pretend for a minute. We'll throw out a hypothetical. Let's just because we know that Dan Quinn really wanted the Bears job, and let's just say, for hypothetically that the Bears really wanted Dan Quinn. Um, and once again, I don't think it matters if it's a white coach or a black coach. If you've got a team that's dead set on a coach, uh, you know, let them hire him. And then also too, like I said, why if you knew, if you knew Dan Quinn wanted to be the coach of the Bears and you knew the Bears wanted Dan Quinn to be the coach of the Bears, once again, it doesn't matter if you're white or black, why would you go interview for the Bears? Because you know you're not going to get hired, all right? And so if you don't hire any minority candidates, that's what's going to happen. Now with Washington, I mean, Dan Snyder wanted Ron Rivera, and he hired Ron Rivera. Now that fulfilled the Rooney Rule because Ron Rivera is considered a minority, and so as a result of that, they fulfilled the Rooney Rule because that was pretty much the only guy they interviewed for the job. Uh, so you know, so I kind of get that too, where that would be for me. It'd be a little bit hard. Like basically, do you pay a fine, or do you say this is the only time that you can do this? No, your next coach, you have to do something. But I get that. Like if there's a guy that you want, but like I said, if Jacksonville had come out and said Byron Leftwich is our guy, that's the person we want, and they were able to work it out, and then they just hired Byron Leftwich without interviewing anybody else, obviously they would have fulfilled the Rooney Rule and they would have got the guy that they wanted. All right. So that I think is where that might be kind of where the Rooney Rule might need to be updated a little bit just in that regard. Because, like I said, if there's a team that really wants a guy and that guy really wants to go there, once again, it's not going to matter if they're black or white. It's just going to be there you go. All right. Uh, but like I said, I think a lot of times though it is just a token interview. All right, but there are a lot of and I do think that we'll have more black head coaches in the NFL here recently because we got DeMarco Ryans, who's a really good coordinator. He should get a shot. Obviously, Byron Leftwich, who I mentioned, he should get a shot. Um, Brian Flores really should get another chance despite the lawsuit. All right, just going on coaching ability. I mean, look what he did with the freaking Dolphins. You imagine if you give that guy some actual talent. All right, so he deserves another shot. Uh, I know, and you've got some other, folks, but and then once again, it's kind of hard too because a lot of folks are saying that the black head coaches don't get the leeway that white head coaches get and things of that nature, which I can kind of understand. But Jim Caldwell probably deserves another chance just because he was in Detroit, and Detroit's a dumpster fire. All right, but then you get guys like Leslie Frazier. Is Leslie Frazier just one of those guys? And there's been white head coaches that have been the same way, like North Turner and Jack Del Rio that come to mind, where they're better coordinators than they are head coaches. So is Leslie Frazier a better coordinator than he is head coach? Is Lovie Smith, is he a better coordinator than he is a head coach? So you got to take all that into account, as well. And so, uh, but the fact remains that, like I said, the Rooney Rule needs to be updated. They need to try something different, and they need to get more head coaches, minority head coaches in the NFL. And like I said, what's the solution? like I said, I think the best thing that you can do is maybe start the renewal at the lower level because, like I said, if you can build up the number of position coaches that are minorities, and then you'll have a bigger pool of minority choices to go up to coordinators, and then you'll have a bigger pool of minority coordinators that can go up to head coach. That might be actually the way to do it. All right, because then that way, when you do have like, hey, that's the guy we want, whether they're black or white, it's not going to matter as much because you're going to have more teams going after black coaches. All right, you're going to have more teams saying, "Hey, I want DeMarco Ryan. Hey, I want Byron Leftwich. Hey, I want Eric Bieniemy. That's my guy." All right, and so and that'll help. And that'll help with that. All right, and then also too, like I said, when it comes down to if you don't want the job, like I said with Byron Leftwich in Jacksonville, and then Dan Quinn in Jacksonville saying no, I don't like this GM, screw him, I'm out. That's the way it's got to go. So but like I said, that might be the best thing to do is do something at the lower level since the NFL is, a work your way up league. Do something lower level, more minority head coaches, more minority offensive staff, and then work your way up. So we'll see how it works out. It's going to be interesting. So anyway, all right. Well, before I let you go here, just remember you can find me at Twitter, Jolton Joe Sports Show, and that's at JJ Sports Show 63, JJ Sports Show 63. Got a week before the Super Bowl, got the Pro Bowl this week. I know I don't think anybody gives a damn about that. Got the Olympics going on. We'll see what happens with the baseball lockout, but we'll keep an eye on the Flores situation. And my team's got a name. Go Commanders and all that kind of fun stuff. So we'll talk some more Olympics. We'll talk some more baseball. Hopefully, there's some new news on that front and all that stuff. And we'll talk to you next week. So, cheers, everybody. And yeah, whoever your team is, go team. All right. Y'all have a good one.